Welcome. We are here once again. We have now set the table up for a three-player game. As you can see, a little bit of a different configuration, and John will be explaining after I kind of show what this looks like and how do we know how they set this way. So we're going to go ahead and move these dice here out of the corner just so that I can show you. So obviously in a two-player game or a four-player game, you kind of set up towards the back, but in a three-player it gets a little more difficult to understand. So what we did was we went ahead and designed little predetermined setup markers right there. And obviously it's for all of the pieces. I'm not going to move them all at this time and moment, but similar to the two-player where you were playing within the red border, in this one we are now playing within the blue border. Also, where these pieces go, they are also blue colored. So you can see pawns, so therefore I would take my pawn and I would put it there, and I would take my other pawn and I would put it there. And then I have a knight, so I'm going to put my knight here, and I'm going to put my rook, and he goes here. Therefore, John will explain the rest.
So, as we've mentioned, the setup for a three-player game is the most different from regular chess. First player will be at the base of a triangle and set up normally, but as you may be able to tell here, slightly farther back than the standard 8x8 chess grid. We move back into these two ranks. Player 1 here set up normally, players 2 and 3 angled in with a battlefield in between them.
That also, for people, many people have asked us, well, how do I know where the back of the field is? It is very simple. Once again, we can show on this side, we have the rook, the knight. You can see that the large pieces, the larger pieces are in the back, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and the pawns are in front of them. So that is able to differentiate. This is, therefore would be the opponent's rear rank. The opponent's rear rank would be the large pieces there. The opponent's rear rank as normal per chess on that side.
One important difference in a three-player game, since we're discussing the idea of rear ranks, some of you may have already asked the question of yourselves, well, what happens if I can get a pawn to the rear rank? How do I do that in a three-player game? This is one of the rules we've changed for a three-player setup. In a three-player game, your pawns may move forward as normal or also to the side. You cannot do both in one turn, but on your next move, you could begin moving to the side, working this goblin over to the undead rear ranks, hoping to promote.
So using that same example, I'm going to go ahead and kind of show it to you on this side real quick. So let us suppose that we have a goblin or a pawn that is right there. It is very simple. As normal in regular chess, this pawn would be able to attack that pawn. But sometimes there are questions that come up because these pieces do move sideways. So what if it looked like that? This is one of those exceptions because many people do ask. Essentially, we know that the forward facing is always in this general direction out here, and therefore a regular piece would be able to attack forward and diagonal in that direction. But because this piece is allowed to move sideways, it is possible that this pawn, in the event of moving sideways, it could attack that piece because now its forward facing is this way just for that move, for that time and moment. Many people ask if that is a backward attack. It looks like it's backward because it's going back toward its own rank, but it is only because the pawn is able to change its facing to either, this case, left or right. It could move this way, but since it is moving this way, it now has two pieces that it may attack. Now we're going to go ahead and move on to something basic. Let's talk about, let's show what this kind of looks like. And obviously we have set it up so that you can get a feel of what it would look like if you wanted to open up some pieces. So let's go ahead, and we're going to have John go ahead and open up with his beginning move on the boost phase. So please go ahead and roll your D6.
So as first player, I roll a boost die. I get a 5. That is not enough to draw a boost card, but that's fine. This early in the game, that gets easier as you go on. Now I will draw a battlefield card.
And the battlefield card that he has drawn at this time and moment.
I have Rangers, which allows me to move one or both of my knights. So I will be moving 3 pieces this turn. I'll start out moving a goblin up, unlocking my bishop and my queen, and then I'll have one hobgoblin move out and the other hobgoblin move out. Now, an important note here is I absolutely could have moved my hobgoblin knights first, followed by the pawn goblin moving. Or I could have, as I did, move the goblin pawn first, then move the hobgoblin knights. What I could not do, what is not allowed in the rules, would be to move one of my knights, then the pawn, then the other knight. Your standard move can never split up the battlefield card. That being said, I have no attacks here. I have done both my standard and battlefield move. My turn is done. I would pass to player 2.
Okay, so let's go ahead and... Alright, as you can see, we went ahead and had player 2 over there went ahead and moved. So what we saw them do was they moved both of their skeletons and the rook. They were able to move, they had a card that allowed them to move a rook and a pawn. So what they did was move both the rook and pawn on the right hand side over here, and then they decided to go ahead and open up with a skeleton over here on their left side. Therefore, I'm going to go ahead and move into my move just so that you can see, because at this time and moment, all the pawns have kind of moved forward in their forward direction. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to see what happens on my end here. So I'm going to roll. A 1 is not going to get me a whole lot here for the bestiary, so we're going to go ahead and draw a battlefield deck card, and what we see is the sentry. And the sentry is move a rook and or move a pawn. Okay, well, with that being said, I actually see that I have maybe an attack that I'd be able to make here. I really can't do much here. This one's kind of locked up, but because I'm able to move the pawns sideways in a 3-player game, because of that pawn, I'm going to move that pawn here to the side. Therefore, it is going to go ahead and open up my rook. My rook is going to come across, and we are going to attack that goblin because we always fight for the spaces. Therefore, we go ahead and look for my rook, or the golem in this case. My attack value is 6. I'm going to go ahead and roll 2d6. Oh, that is not very good. So 6 plus 3 in this case is 9. So the goblin
is going to fight back Goblin's defense value is 2, so I add 2, 2.
So therefore, as you can see, he went ahead and rolled a 10 as opposed to my 9. Even though I am the attacker and came in with a stronger value, I was not able to, or he was actually able to overcome me by rolling equal to or better than what I had as the incoming attacker. Therefore, my piece is captured and removed, and the goblin keeps his position.